So I wanted to mention something that's been in the bulletin that in 2022, yes, it's almost 2022, we are going back to the book. So Seventh day Adventists are known as people of the book, right? And Christians, as Christians, we should be people of the book. And there's different ways to read the Bible. You can read it slowly and deeply. You can focus on one chapter a day or even one verse a day and just dig down deep into that verse. And that's a great way to do it too. But another really good way to read it is all the way through fairly quickly. And I think it adds another element of understanding the story of Scripture to do it chronologically. So that's what we're planning to do next year. It is in your bulletin. And we like everyone to read along together at home. And then when you come to church, the sermons at church, at least my sermons, will be along what you're reading. So you're at home and you're reading in Deuteronomy that week. Well, may not necessarily be, but I'll be preaching more or less along where you're at. So you're in the prophets, we're preaching in the prophets. You're in the Gospels, we're preaching in the Gospels. You're towards the end in the letters of Paul, we're preaching from the letters of Paul. So I'd like to do this all together as a church, and there's different ways you can do it. We are going to make printed Bible reading plans available to you because since it's chronological, you don't just start at Genesis and go all the way to Revelation. You do start in Genesis, but there's you skip around some because the Bible, the order that the books are in is not chronological order, so they're reordered, so you can get that printed. We will make that available. We're also talking about the best ways to make it available online. But another option, if you have the money and you just like to do this, I have a chronological one-year Bible. The company is The 1 Year, and they make chronological Bibles. They make them in various translations. I actually have two of them because I've been through it twice chronologically with these, and it's amazing. And this is just, very convenient. You don't have to skip around. You don't have to have the separate sheet to keep track. It keeps track for you, and you just read the next day, read January 1, read February 10, keep going. So you can do that if you'd like. So I'm telling you in advance so you have time to order it because you might be able to find it locally, but probably not. You probably have to order it online. That's the 1 Year chronological Bible in different translations. So that's an option if you want to do it that way. And I would say, so I just want to throw this out there. Maybe you're thinking, oh man, I would love to, but it is so hard for me to read that much every day. It is 3-4 chapters sometimes. If that is the case, listen to it. There's so many apps available. You can listen to it on your phone. You can buy CDs, cassette tapes, probably 8-track tapes. I don't know. They have whatever you need. So yeah, some people say, well, you can't listen to it. That's cheating. And it is true. Maybe you get a little more out of it if you read it with your actual eyes on the actual page. But I'll tell you what, listening is better than reading it until January 10, then getting behind, then giving up, okay? If that's what's going to happen, just listen to it. There's no shame in that. Keep along with us, and you can continue doing whatever you're doing in your personal study time as well. But yeah, so I will be, if you're still on the fence, I will be in an upcoming sermon giving you my full sales pitch for why I really think this is a life-changing experience and you should get on board. So hang tight for that. But I wanted to give you a heads up so that you can, buy the book if you want, so you can make plans in your mind, because this is going to be a really cool thing for us as a church, I think, to get back to the book together. All right, so starting my message with a story. One day, a lady was going through her local newspaper and she read this ad. Here it is, word for word. Is there any place where we can borrow a little boy, 3 or 4 years old, for the Christmas holidays? Question mark. We have a nice home and would take wonderful care of him and bring him back safe and sound. We used to have a little boy, but he couldn't stay, and we miss him so when Christmas comes. That's obviously a strange request, right? A very strange request. Letter to the editor, I need a little boy for Christmas time. Very strange request. But this young lady read this request, and it touched her. It did something in her heart because she too knew what it was like to lose someone and to miss someone. A short time before, actually it was that year, she had lost her husband overseas. He was in the military, died in the service, didn't make it home, of course, and she knew what it was like to miss him. But she did have her little boy. So she and her little boy, and here's a family that was missing a little boy. She responded to the ad. As unlikely as it was, yes, someone responded to the ad. She called the newspaper. They put her in touch with the people. And she said, I guess, yeah, me and my son can come over. And she explained that she also knew what it was like to miss someone. She had lost her husband. They lost their boy. It was perfect. When she got there, she found it was not a husband and wife. It was a widower and his mother. And he had lost his son and his wife in an accident a few years prior. And so it was this kind of time of where they both shared their losses and shared their memories, and they really had a wonderful Christmas together. The mom and her son who had lost her husband, she lost her husband and her son, and the widower and his mother who had lost his wife and son. And it was such a good time. It was such a good time that they said, maybe we should do this again. And now they celebrate every Christmas together because she married the widower. It led to, she thought she was giving her son and herself for a Christmas dinner, and she got far more. They made a new family out of it. A beautiful story, right? An unlikely story and a beautiful story. How when we give in some small way, we get far more back in return. And she gave her time and her son's time, and out of the deal, she got a husband. Beautiful story. It reminds me, and I love this time of year where we can think about giving and we can think about what God gave to us. And today I'd like to talk about what we are called to do in response to what he's done for us. So turn with me, please, to Matthew chapter 2, the Gospel according to Matthew chapter 2. It's the story of the wise men, Matthew chapter 2. We'll begin reading in verse 1. Matthew chapter 2, I hear a few pages turning, and we'll start in verse 1. Now, Matthew 2, verse 1, now after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, behold, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem. Verse 2, saying, where is he who has been born, King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east and have come to worship him. We'll pause there. This is the first question of the New Testament. The first question of the New Testament is, where is he? The first question of the Old Testament is God in the garden looking for Adam. Where are you? Wow. God is pursuing us and looking for us. The first question of Scripture, where are you? The first question of the New Testament, where is he? God calls us to seek him the way he sought us. Where are you, Adam? And now, where is he? Where is Christ? Where is Jesus? He seeks us, we seek him back. Who are these guys? Where did they come from? So we began this service by singing We Three Kings of Orient Are. I love that song. Please don't get me wrong. I love that song. But they weren't kings, probably. There weren't three of them, probably. And I'm not sure what the Orient, if that's the correct terminology nowadays. That song's a little bit maybe, off. But I love that song, and the message of the song is true and good. These were wise men, probably not kings, but they were probably of noble birth philosophers, perhaps, scholarly people, educated, wealthy people, influential people. And there was probably not just three of them. The idea of three comes from the fact that there's three gifts. Gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And the early Christian church in the first, few hundred years after Jesus read that and they made up stories about these guys. They made names for these guys. Here's the names they gave them: Gaspar, Balthazar, and Melchior. Now, there's no evidence that that was their names. There's no evidence that there was three of them. But I think the early church just was so curious about these guys, they had to make up some stories. So they kind of passed along the tradition that there were three of them, and that's where we get that from. There's no evidence that there were three of them. There were probably more based on the fact that they made a huge stir when they showed up in Jerusalem. I'm guessing three people showing up might not make as big of a stir as who knows how many showed up and made a big stir. All of Jerusalem was wondering what was going on. Apparently, there were probably quite a few of them. So it says they were from the east. It doesn't say exactly where. But many people believe that they're from kind of the same place that Balaam was from. And there's a good reason for that. If that's true, they traveled about 400 miles to come and find Jesus. They were expecting a Messiah from Israel. And I'm turning to Numbers chapter 24. If you'd like to turn there, keep your finger in Matthew. But Numbers chapter 24, verse 17, is Balaam's prophecy about a coming Messiah. It doesn't use the word Messiah, but a ruler, and it connects it with a star. Numbers 24, 17, this is the prophet Balaam saying, I see him, and in my Bible that's a capital H. I see him, but not now. I behold him, but not near. A star shall come out of Jacob. A scepter shall arise out of Israel and batter the brow of Moab and destroy all the sons of tumult. So here in Balaam's prophecy of old, this is an ancient prophecy by the time the New Testament comes around, there's a star and a ruler. And so a lot of people believe that these men, the wise men, knew that prophecy, knew there was going to be a star connected with a ruler, connected with Israel, and they were expecting that. Now, apparently they were acquainted maybe with other prophecies as well. Daniel, for example, spent some time out east, did he not? He spent most of his life, almost all of his life in Babylon. Maybe they were acquainted with Daniel chapter 9. And if so, if they had understood that prophecy right, maybe they knew that he was coming soon. Maybe they knew that the time was upon us for this Messiah to come. Whatever the case, they knew enough that when they saw the star, they were excited. And they began a journey to find the king. It was a long journey. I don't know if you've ever traveled 400 miles on foot or on camels. Probably not. It took them at least 3 weeks minimum, probably at least a month or more, realistically. And they traveled at night because they were following the star. And imagine them finally coming over that last hill and seeing Jerusalem in the distance. I'm, kind of picturing this moment. I imagine it being almost sunrise. The sun's starting to come up. The stars are starting to fade, but they can tell that big star is right there above Jerusalem. They do the last couple of miles, and they're picking up pace because they're getting excited. They enter the city gates, and the first thing they say, "Where is he?" Whoever they see, I don't know, maybe they saw a woman with her baby, maybe they saw some kids playing, maybe they saw a man starting about his daily business. Where is he? Who? Who are you talking about? The king. The newborn king. Your king, the Jewish king. Maybe that person's off his rocker. We'll move on to someone else. And they pull their camels into Casey's. Isn't that where you go if you want to know what's going on in town? They pull their camels into Casey's, go in and ask the teller, "Hey, where is he? We've come to find your king, the newborn king. Where is he?" Everyone should know, right? Everyone should be talking. It should be a hubbub. It should be a palace. They should be catering to this man. There should be long lines to see the new baby. Nobody knows what they're talking about. Nobody knows what they're talking about, but it creates a huge stir in Jerusalem. Let's keep reading. Verse 3, Matthew chapter 2, continuing verse 3. When Herod the king heard this, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. Okay, so all Jerusalem is troubled. That's why I think there's more than 3 of these people. All Jerusalem is troubled. This is a big deal. Verse 4, and when he had gathered all the chief priests and scribes of the people together, he inquired of them where the king was to be born. So they said to him, in Bethlehem of Judea, for thus it is written by the prophet, but you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judea, are not the least among the rulers of Judah, for out of you shall come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel. Verse 7, then Herod, when he had secretly called the wise men, determined from them what time the star had appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem and said, go and search carefully for the young child, and when you have found him, bring back word to me, that I may come and worship him also. We'll pause there. Not everyone was as excited about the coming of Christ as the wise men were. So you have Herod. Herod's, I think, afraid, right? He's afraid. He's all about his power, and a new king sounds like a threat to power. Now, we know quite a bit of history about Herod. He was not known as a nice guy. He was a cruel and ruthless man. You know the story in the Bible, most of you, about the slaughter that took place after this, where he made sure all of the baby boys in Bethlehem were killed. That was not the first terrible thing he had done to secure his power. This was a power-hungry man, and he would do anything to keep his power. All of Jerusalem is troubled. What's Herod going to do next? Right? Oh no. Herod's concerned about a threat to power. What's he going to do? All Jerusalem is troubled. Then there's the chief priests and scribes. They're apparently mostly indifferent about this, which you would think they would be excited, right? They should have been excited. They should have known the time was about there. They should have been watching for the star. They should have been excited. But it sounds like they weren't. The text says that Herod had to bring them in and he inquired of them. It's almost like he had to really pull it out of them. Okay, come on. Where is he supposed to be born? What's going on here? Tell me what's going on. They were offended, I think. I think they were offended that the Gentiles, these uncircumcised wise men, were coming to see their king. It's none of their business where our king is. They were offended. Their pride was there. But while God was opening the door to the Gentiles, the Jewish leaders were closing the door to themselves. Let's continue reading in verse 9. When they heard the king, that's the wise men, when the wise men heard Herod, when they heard the king, they departed. And behold, the star which they had seen in the east went before them, till it came and stood over where the young child was. When they saw the star, they rejoiced with exceedingly great joy. And when they had come into the house, they saw the young child with Mary, his mother, and fell down and worshipped him. And when they had opened their treasures, they presented gifts to him, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Then, verse 12, being divinely warned in a dream that they should not return to Herod, they departed for their own country another way. It's interesting that the star led them to Jerusalem first. I think that was God's doing. God could have just pushed the star on straight to Bethlehem, but it started by hovering over Jerusalem. God wanted these men to show up in Jerusalem to cause a stir, to draw attention to the birth of Jesus Christ. And then, when they had exhausted those options, realized Jesus wasn't there, then the star reappears and leads them to Bethlehem. So what does this all have to do with us? My question today for you and for me is this. What is your response to the coming of Christ? What is your response to the coming of Christ? And I'm not talking about what do you do on Christmas? How do you celebrate December 25th? That's beside the point. What is your response to the coming of Christ? How do you observe? How do you appreciate? Where does your heart stand when you think about his first coming and his soon second coming? So it's not my purpose to tell you how to celebrate Christmas or whether or not to celebrate Christmas. Some Christians choose not to, and that's fine with me. But it is my purpose to tell you to celebrate the coming of Christ, his first coming, and to be ready for his soon second coming. And more specifically, I would say that we are called to worship Christ the way the wise men did. They did three things. First, they sought him. Now, they went out of their way to seek him. How much do you have to love something to spend a month and 400 miles on it? A whole lot. I don't think I'd take a month out of my life for very many things. I don't think I would take a month out of my life for very many things. I'm sure they had other things to do. They weren't just sitting around doing nothing. These were important people. They were scholarly, educated people. They could have been teachers. They had to find a sub for their class for the next, 2 months. I don't care. I'm going to go. I've got to find this Jesus. They were in the middle of their dissertations, maybe. We don't know what they were doing. Well, sorry, I've got to, they had responsibilities. They had obligations. They put all that on hold to seek Jesus. Friends, wise men still seek Jesus. Seek Jesus. Wise men, wise women still seek Jesus today. So first they sought him. Secondly, they worshiped him. They worshiped him. And third, they presented gifts to him. They sought him. They worshiped him. They presented gifts to him. What is your response to the coming of Christ? You have options. Many people are like Herod because there's only room for one king in your life. There's only room for one king. If it's you, it's not Jesus. And if it's Jesus, it's not you. There's only room for one king. Many people are like Herod. They aren't willing to step off the throne and let Jesus be their king. It's a decision we have to make. Who will be the king in your life? Who will be the king in your life? Many of us war against Christ because he stands in direct opposition to what we want to do. And I'm not talking about the big decisions. I'm talking about the small ones, the everyday decisions. Every day, there's times when our selfishness wants us to do this, and Jesus says no. And that's when we make the decision. Who's going to be on the throne today? Who's going to be on the throne right now? Then there's the chief priests and scribes, another option. They believed, but they were indifferent. Yeah, we know Jesus is coming. I think Bethlehem, that prophet said, yeah, we believe all that stuff. But they didn't care. Why didn't they at that point drop everything and follow these wise men to see the king? Why? I don't know why. They just didn't care enough, I guess. And that's so many of us. We believe, we care, sure, to a certain extent. But do we really drop everything to seek him? Do we really drop everything to worship him? Do we present him gifts the way these men did? We're too absorbed in our own stuff, our own pride. And then there's the wise men. They sought him. They worshiped him. They presented gifts to him. I love the way verse 11 portrays this. Now, you notice, of course, again, debunking another myth about the wise men. They were not at the manger the night Jesus was born. They're a month or so later, right? A couple months later. We don't know exactly. And they come into, it says, verse 11, the house where Jesus was. So by this time, they were apparently staying with, some relatives of Joseph's probably because he was from there. They're in a house, and they come into the house, and imagine their shock. This is the King of the Jews? And this poor family? Where's all of the, pomp and circumstance? Where's his musicians that should be around here? He should have like a little chamber orchestra. Where is everything? Where is everybody? They didn't care, though. They put their faces to the ground, it says. They fell down and worshiped him. They opened their treasures and presented gifts to him. What does it mean to worship? What does it mean to worship? So I think, when I think of worship, this one little definition, it'd be reverently honoring and exalting God. Worshiping him with your steps, your actions, not just your words. We worship him through prayer and praise, through songs, through obedience, service. And different people have different ways of worshiping him because we all have different gifts. So what looks like worship to you may not be the same to me necessarily, but we are all called to worship him. They fell down. Imagine these wealthy, influential men. They don't care if they're going to get their robes dirty on the mud floor. They fell down and worshiped him. When we really worship God, God uses our worship to bring others to him. So they sought him, and I'd ask you, what can you do to seek Christ this year in a new way? Secondly, they worshiped him. What can you do to worship Christ in a deeper way today and onward? And thirdly, they presented gifts. Friends, if we have given our hearts to Jesus, our gifts will go to him as well. Now, that may not be money, but it includes everything, our time and our money. Yes, our energy, our talents, our possessions, our mental capacity and energy, all devoted to him. He gave all for us. The least we could do is give all to him. If you want to know what's important to someone, you check their calendar and their budget. If you show me your calendar and your budget, I can tell you what's important to you. Where do we spend our time? Where do we spend our money? If we are followers of Christ, then that should be reflected in our calendar. That should be reflected in our budget. So present gifts to him. So how do you give Jesus a birthday present? How would you go about that? I think my answer to that is from Matthew 25. Whatever you have done for the least of these, you've done to him. There's different things God may be calling you to do for the least of these, but think about that this year. What can you do to present a gift to Christ of your time and your energy, your money, whatever it may be? What can you do to present a gift to Christ? Seek him, worship him, present gifts to him. Go out of your way this year to worship Christ, to seek him, to present gifts to him. And I'd close with another story. I love this story. It's written by the Russian author Leo Tolstoy. There was a cobbler named Martin, and Martin loved the Lord, and it was almost time for Christmas. In his little shop there, he was preparing, he was cleaning everything. He had just finished a beautiful new little pair of baby shoes, and he thought, man, if baby Jesus was here tonight, I would give him these precious shoes. But, of course, he's not here, obviously. Well, Martin had a dream that night. He went to sleep, and he had a dream. And in his dream, God appeared to him. Jesus appeared to him and said, Martin, I'm going to visit your shop tomorrow. I'm going to come to your shop tomorrow. Watch for me, wait for me, and invite me in, and I will sit and hang out. I'll eat with you. I'll enjoy this time with you. Martin woke up from his dream. He was so excited he couldn't go back to sleep. He spent the rest of the early morning hours in the dark preparing, making everything look extra special. He believed the dream was true. He believed Jesus in some way was going to show up that day. So he made everything ready. He prepared some food. He beautified his place, decorated, just made everything perfect in his little cobbler shop. So he sat down by the window. It's morning now, and there's people out and about. He sat by the window watching for his Savior to pass by. He saw an old man, a street sweeper, back in the days where they had street sweeper, manually sweeping the streets. He looked at that street sweeper, very tired, poor old man. He's like, man, he doesn't look so good out there. It's cold. And he opens the door and, hey, come on in here, warm up a little bit, have some soup. And the old man welcomed his hospitality, came in, refreshed himself. The cobbler noticed that he didn't have shoes on. He was very poor, gave him a pair of shoes, warmed him up, sent him back out there to keep working. Martin sits down by his window again and keeps watching. Then he sees a mother with her little baby. Very cold, obviously. It's a cold day. There's sleet and rain and snow, and it's just cold and horrible out there, windy. He calls this mother in. You look like you need to warm up a little bit. Come on in. Where are you headed? Starts this conversation, and the baby doesn't have shoes. He takes his brand new shoes that he had just finished the day before, beautiful white little shoes, puts them on the baby's feet, feeds her, gives her everything she needs, sends her out the door. The whole day goes on like this. More people come in, more people go out. He gives his soup away to more strangers that look hungry and warms them up by the fire, all this stuff. And finally, the day's over. It's dark. It's bedtime. He goes to bed. He's disappointed. He says, God, why didn't you show up? And it was as if the room filled with light as he remembered the words, whatever you've done for the least of these, you've done to me. God told him, I did show up today. I was that old man that you helped. I was that mother. I was that baby that you gave those shoes to. Whatever you did for the least of these, you've done to me. Today, I'd like to encourage each one of us to think about it. What can we do in this coming year to seek Christ in a new way, to worship him in a deeper way, and to present gifts to the least of these? Amen. And let's finish with our closing hymn, number 100.